Live from San Diego, this is the Fox 5 Morning News at 7.
Well, he was a Marine Corps veteran, PTSD survivor who was literally on the brink of suicide. He turned his life around, and now he wants to share with you everything he has learned. Please welcome to the show, of course, he is the author of the forthcoming book, Fear, Akshay Nanavati. Akshay, good morning, and thanks for being with us.
Good morning, pleasure to be here.
What a tough story to have to share with people, not only doing interviews, but in this book. Talk to me a little bit, if you will, about your experience and kind of what led you to the brink of suicide, and what, most importantly, what brought you back?
So when I got back from Iraq, it wasn't actually until about 10 years later that I was diagnosed with PTSD.
Wow.
I got caught up in the day-to-day grind, and it slowly crept up on me. I was struggling with alcohol, but I never really saw it as a problem. Till one day, after a 5-day binge of just downing pints of vodka, I wake up and think to myself that there's no point going on. And the fact that I would even think of taking my life hit me hard. That's when I realized something needed to change. That was a good wake-up call. In fact, I'm grateful for that moment.
Of course.
And that led me to the research in neuroscience and psychology and realizing how to heal my own brain and translate this into something meaningful.
Wow. How does the guy sitting in this chair right now look back on that guy who was at that low point in his life?
It's shocking. It's still, it's still mind-blowing that I could ever be there. But like I said, now I could not be more grateful for it, because I think our demons can be our greatest allies when we translate them into something meaningful.
Who suffers from PTSD most here in the United States, from your research and what you've learned?
Veterans, of course, but 70% of Americans experience trauma. And we all go through some sort of suffering at some point in our lives, from divorce, from loss of a loved one. Everybody suffers. It's about then learning what to do with that.
Okay, so what did you learn in terms of the Marines and reframing fear, and like what you mentioned just moments ago, you kind of use that fear as a fuel, if you will, is how you describe it, right? Explain that to me.
When I was in the Marines in Iraq, my job was to walk in front of vehicle convoys to search for improvised explosive devices before they could blow us up. So needless to say, it was scary.
Yeah, no kidding.
But out there, I learned that fear propelled you to prepare. So because it was a scary job, we trained hard. We were prepared for it. And fear allows you to focus. Because in Iraq, complacency kills. So the fear drove us to actually be more engaged, and that adrenaline rush helped us focus on our task at hand.
I mean, some of the pictures that you see here, it's incredible. It really is. The history and the meaning of Fear, because kind of like obviously a play on Nirvana, if you will. How did you come up with that and what it means?
The idea of Fearvana is that we find our bliss through fear. So the way I define it is, Fearvana is the bliss that results from engaging our fears to pursue our own worthy struggle.
Wow.
So when I overcame my own suffering, I found meaningful struggles, which was writing a book, and exercise was a big one. Running ultramarathons was my salvation.
Ultramarathons? How many miles is that?
Anything more than a marathon. So I've done a 50K, I've done some 33-mile races.
Oh my God.
Working my way up to 50 milers and more.
3K, I mean, the 5Ks are hard for me, so that respect for that. Let's talk about some of the tips you have. The big picture in terms of kind of handling your fears. You say, first of all, visualize the pain, right? Kind of take me through this one. What it means. It's view, if you will.
So with the V, you don't want to actually visualize yourself on the other end of the obstacle you're facing. So for example, when I mentioned the ultramarathons, I always visualize myself suffering, because I know I'll get to a point that it hurts. And when you mentally prepare for it, you're better ready to physically engage it. So that's the V, is visualize the pain. The next step is I, where you isolate yourself from your fears. And this is actually stepping outside of them and saying, okay, what's causing it? So when I struggled with the PTSD, I had to step out and say, what's causing all these demons? And that's when I allowed myself to become present to my guilt and reframe that survivor's guilt that I had over losing a friend into something meaningful. So you isolate yourself so you can understand it, and then the next step is the E, to embrace the fear. This is when you're actually harnessing the emotions. Your goal is not to get rid of fear, stress, anxiety.
Which is key, because people think they try to squash that fear. No. Use it, right?
Exactly. Embrace it. Richard Branson says that fear is fuel. Use it as energy.
Yes, sir. And so you mentioned the why in terms of knowing what the reward would be, right?
The why is that driving force. What is that greater purpose? I mean, when I wrote this book, when I got out of those, those low points, it was to remember that I can use this to help people, to do something meaningful with my life, and that's what's brought me back from the abyss.
I mean, that's awesome. The Dalai Lama, even, the Dalai Lama was recently in San Diego.
That's right.
He endorsed your book. How do you get the Dalai Lama to endorse your book?
It was a pure cold pitch, some healthy persistence, and just honestly very vulnerable about my struggles and the impact we want to make. I told him we're actually giving away all the proceeds of the book to charity.
That's amazing.
And he was compelled by the story and how we want to make a difference with it.
Good for you, man. How do people get this book?
Fearvana.com.
I mean, I'm telling you, the story is amazing. We thank you, Akshay, for coming and sharing that story. All the information, by the way, is also on fox5sandiego.com. Click that scene on tap. Akshay, thank you again.
Pleasure.
Back to you.